Kiwanis for having us here today. Candidate forums are a very important part of the election process. I also wanted to thank a couple of special people that are in the room today. My husband, Peter Gelser, is here, and my parents, John and Joe Akers, are here. I think everyone that's a candidate for public office knows our families put up with a lot and pick up a lot of slack so that we can go out and do the work that we want to do. Our ballots will be arriving in just about 1 week. And my hope is that when you receive your ballot, you will mark that little circle that's next to my name. And when you sit there and you think about which circle to mark, I hope that you will think about the work that I've been able to do for this community and the state of Oregon in the 9 years that you've trusted me to be your representative in the Oregon House. So I just want to highlight a couple of those things. Thousands of Oregon kids have had access to child abuse medical examinations that were not available to them prior to the passage of Carly's Law, a bill that I introduced and passed with the help of Joan Demarest, who prosecuted the Gurley Sheehan case. Thousands of Oregon kids will be able to access Pell Grants, federal Pell Grants, to attend post-secondary education, whether that's culinary arts, welding, or a 2-year or 4-year degree, because I went to the U.S. Department of Education and advocated for them this spring. They allowed us to allow that financial aid to those kids because in 2007, I wrote and passed legislation that made Oregon the only state in the nation with state-wide standards for modified and extended diplomas. Thanks to legislation that I introduced and passed, we have elevated the crime of strangulation to a felony, which is the most deadly thing that can happen in a domestic violence situation. We have toughened Oregon's rape laws, making it easier to prosecute individuals that rape those that are incapacitated and those that prey on the elderly and very small children. We have sexual assault protective orders for non-intimate partners. Thanks to constituent work that I've done, I've been able to help individuals who are displaced from Hewlett-Packard access tens of thousands of dollars of workforce retraining benefits that they were owed under the Trade Act because their jobs were shipped overseas. That happened because I organized them and helped them come together to file the petition that was necessary for them to be able to get those services. And thousands of prescriptions for mental health, cardiac drugs, diabetic drugs have been distributed at no cost to the state because of Oregon's charitable pharmacy program that was created because of a bill that I introduced and passed after talking to constituents who thought it was wasteful that drugs just went to the garbage that were sitting in their medicine cabinets when they knew people who needed those life-saving and pain-reducing drugs. As your state senator, I want to continue working. I want to continue to be the senator that's on your side. My door will continue to be open. You'll continue to be able to access me at any time, and I will continue fighting for the working families of Oregon. That's why I have the endorsements of firefighters, working families, police officers, nurses, all of the people that stand up and work for us every day. I look forward to answering your questions, and I will stay as long as we need today to make sure that every last question that you have is answered. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you very much, Representative Gelser. One person I neglected to introduce is our timekeeper. So Kayla Dunham is going to be performing in that service, and she will have the cards. She'll be doing the Vanna White. Now it's my pleasure to introduce on my left, Senator Betsy Close. Senator Close.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Kiwanis, for having us here today. What a nice big group and what a gorgeous day. Thank you for the privilege of representing you these past 8 years, going on 9 now, 6 in the Oregon House, 2 in the Oregon Senate. It's been the dream of my life, and I really enjoy the work we do and what we've been able to accomplish over those years. I'm a Timbertown girl, a mother of 4, grandmother of 2, a public school teacher, and a leader in the Oregon Senate. I ran back in the late 1990s because I was concerned. I was concerned for our students' loss of basic skills in the schools. Scores were going down in reading and math. As a teacher at South Albany High School, I had a senior young man in my class who I found out was not going to graduate. When I asked why, they said it was because he could not read. I watched as our Oregon jobs went away, especially our mill jobs that paid $16 an hour starting, and they still do pay that much, and $70,000 a year in the Albany paper mill, which is now gone. When the spotted owl was listed, our #1 industry, which was timber, was blamed, and the vast majority of our mills closed due to lack of log supply. We still have a lack of log supply, and that's why it's difficult for us to compete with other countries. And we also, through the ONC counties, don't have that sustained harvest for our schools and our roads, which is what our counties used to depend on, and that's why some of our counties are close to bankruptcy. We now know that another owl was killing the spotted owl. And actions have consequences, and those are very severe consequences for Oregon. When elected in 1998, I took action in the legislature. I co-sponsored and passed a phonics curriculum bill for teachers that elected to use phonics. I sponsored the Youth Employment Act to help our teenagers, 14 through 19, get that first job through public-private partnerships to train them. I knew this work because I had worked as a job developer for Benton County, 1979, and we placed kids all over Corvallis through federal CETA grants. Vocational work skills help students gain well-paying jobs for a bright future, and my goal is to make sure that all students can have access to those skills. There's much left to do. I ask you to partner with me to keep working and striving for an educated and prosperous Oregon, leading the country in success. And I believe we can achieve that for your grandkids and for mine. I promise to work hard in Salem to get Oregon moving for all of us, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Close. Now, I have probably 25 questions that were submitted to me over the internet, and I have another 10 or so that have been submitted so far today. So what we're trying to do is, several of the questions focus on the same topic, so I'm just going to read it, and then we'll have the responses from the candidates. First, let me put these on so I can see. What do you plan to do, and by the way, all these questions will be applicable to both candidates. There are no direct questions just to one person. So these will be relative to both persons. What do you plan to do with the enormous student debt from college graduates, recent college graduates, and how will you seek to reduce student debt for future college graduates? And this person that submitted this is working on a master's degree and is currently going back to the job that this person had while they were going through school, because there are no other jobs available. So now we're going to alternate, and Senator Close will answer first.
Thank you. Well, this is a huge problem. I think there's been students have had too easy access to credit, and that's put them in a very difficult situation. I have my children's spouses had debt, and so they helped pay their spouse's debt off, but it's very difficult. We have to look for alternatives in education. What we found with our 4 kids, we live in Albany, that we couldn't pay for them to live in the dorms because that's where a lot of the expense came. So they lived at home. We told them we'll pay tuition and books, and you can go to any of the schools here in the valley that you can drive to, and that's what they did. Myself, when I was a graduate student here at Oregon State, I taught a 200-level class, but I applied for a graduate assistantship because that paid a very small stipend, and it also waived tuition. And so there's some options like this that I don't know if students are aware of, but we should be looking at that and make those more available. We should look at student fees because the list of student fees keeps going up and up. And I think in many cases that puts a hardship on our students. I actually voted against the last tuition increase that we had in 2003. And I got up on the House floor and I told them I have a conflict of interest. I have 4 kids that are about to go to college. So, you know, we need to work together to find answers. I would expect the federal government will be the ones that pass the legislation that deals with the debt, however. So I pledge to keep trying. Thank you.
This is a problem that I hear about probably more often than any other when I'm knocking on doors in both Albany and Corvallis. The cost of college tuition is enormous right now, and the cost of that debt when students leave is overwhelming. Right now, if a student decides to go to college and take out loans for that college, they're essentially making a financial commitment that's equivalent to buying their first home. So there's a number of things that we need to do about this. At the state level, we need to improve our investment in our colleges and universities. Unless we're investing in the core functions of those institutions, the institutions really don't have a choice but to raise tuition so they're able to keep the professors and the sections that they need for students to get through. However, as a legislator, I have voted to freeze tuition while I've also advocated and worked to free up additional resources to be able to put into our colleges and universities. We also need to work to make it more flexible for students to be able to transfer credits, and we've done that. So now we know in this community, many students will go to Lynn Benton Community College to get their core credits out of the way, and then they'll move on to a more expensive four-year institution to get their higher level, more specialty classes. We're also working to make sure that high school students are able to leave high school with college credits, which will reduce the amount of money that they need to spend when they're in college. We also need to make sure that our college schedules are much more accessible to students, especially when they're working. Right now, it's very hard to finish a four-year degree in 4 years, or a two-year degree in 2 years, because you can't get into the sections you need. And finally, we need to demand that our federal government steps up to take care of this. Student loans should not be a profit generator for the federal government, which it is right now. Students should be able to borrow for student loans at the same rate that the big banks borrow from the federal government. That is some work that Senator Merkley is working on and has supported, and I hope that the next Congress is able to move that. Otherwise, our students are going to continue to be saddled with overwhelming debt.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted ministerial detail here. Okay.